Welcome, welcome. It's Friday, guys. What's up? Mr. Riley, how are you?
I'm doing well, man. Happy Friday. Chad, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. I'm ready for this. So, this is a really fun one for me because I do spend a lot of time online. And we're going to be talking about how to generate opportunities, leads, clients, I mean, whatever word you want to plug in there. How do you utilize LinkedIn to be able to help you guys grow your business? Have you I guess what have you heard about LinkedIn or have you used LinkedIn to be able to kind of run this side of the business, the online side?
Yeah, specifically the online side. And I'll tell you this, how I used to use it is so much more different than how I use it today in this current day. Back then it was more of that's where you post your resume, I felt. It was really early on. It wasn't as high volume of participants. Nowadays, it's a validation. It's a light way to send a connection request without wanting to be their friend. So that's really how I use it. I want to create connections and align myself with groups. I want to put my resume online. I want to put my credentials online and essentially network. That's how I use it. Do you use it differently?
Yes, I do. So all that stuff you said is right. However, if you look at it almost from a different perspective, it is, I mean, it's not even a different perspective. It is the largest professional network in the world to where anybody who's online, right? Like a Facebook or Instagram or, X or whatever it is, it doesn't make a difference. Those are all personal, right? So if I was to go in there, I might post a photo of me and my son or like whatever we do. And that's always a really, really fine line, right? Do I want to add my client on my Facebook? Do I want them to see what I'm doing? Do they want me? And it can be awkward. Where LinkedIn is that professional world. So I would probably say let's go back to pre-COVID because I think that's where I think a lot of this kind of sat because so, I mean even you think about like Zoom and everything else that we use so commonly now, it wasn't common before then. And even like you said, LinkedIn was more of that professional network where only certain people, right, had that or had those profiles, where now it's a different world. So I don't know about you, but when I originally got into roofing, commercial roofing, and I had to go find a lead, I was basically given a bunch of flyers and told to go walk into an industrial park. You remember those days?
Absolutely. It's like, look, you're new, you're starting. Here's a phone. That phone isn't ringing. You got to go make it ring. So here's a call list, and here's a bunch of addresses. Go make stuff happen.
That's right. That's right. And I do remember doing drops in industrial parks, and I do remember having success doing it. But I guess one of the craziest things that I look back on, 'cause we never see what's happening right now, right? We always look back on it. But as soon as all of the COVID stuff went inside place, right? As soon as the lockdown happened, all that kind of different things, I mean, naturally, we all know, number one, they locked doors. No one's allowed to come inside a building anymore, right? And then after that, then they started building walls, right? And I say building walls because literally I can walk into buildings now and there's glass walls that don't even allow me. I have to sit in the atrium, right? Before I can even see or meet anybody. And then I think the biggest thing that happened is that it forced everybody to work from home. And I think that is the biggest disconnect of what changed between how prospecting and lead generation and all that stuff is done now compared to what it was. I used to be able to go in an industrial park and talk to a maintenance manager. Then the maintenance manager was forced to go home. And then he was forced to learn how to remotely manage a building that he can't even be in, which is almost common now, right?
Yeah, very, very much so common too. And you're forced to use technology to communicate. How much has FaceTime been used during the COVID days? More so than ever. And it's almost like you were forced to figure it out. But using LinkedIn as that example to figure out, let's say you knocked on that door. Normally you would knock on that door and then you would kind of see the front desk and you would see, okay, the office is back there, the finance office over here. You would kind of build that organization or that map of that organization live in person. So now we're finding ourselves building that map by going to LinkedIn and saying, okay, here's the president, here's the accountant side. Okay, oh, here's this connection set. So that's a good example of it.
it's crazy, right? So then we got the doors that are locked, we got people that are working from home, we got the walls that are up. Like prospecting is hard. So what happened is one, everybody got forced to be online because that's the only social interaction that you can have. And the amount of LinkedIn profiles that happened during that time was it's actually massive. So if you were to go on LinkedIn right now and you were to look at, I'm just making something up, go to Best Buy. And in a small little piece now, and it's been there for a little while, but on LinkedIn, you can see it says 45,000 or whatever the number is, the massive number, 45,000 employees. And it's a blue hyperlinked button. So, like you said, we used to have to build that org chart based upon really who we spoke to and asking the question, who's your boss or who do you report to? Now you can go on LinkedIn and I can see 45,000 Best Buy employees, all the way from junior associate to general manager to, I mean, if you type in facilities, go on, go try it. It's going to bring up everybody who is at best as working at Best Buy that has the title facilities. It's never been easier to be able to find, I'll say your persona, right? Or you're the person you're trying to contact than right now using LinkedIn. It's such a cool tool that I think is underutilized.
It totally is, right? Because in roofing, we aren't looking for the front office necessarily. We have to start there and try to work your way up. Who are you asking for? I'm looking for someone that makes a decision on behalf of your roofing portfolio. Okay, that's a maintenance manager, or that's the CEO, or that's this guy. You can go onto LinkedIn right now and clearly see who that role is and get to that name and then send a contact or create that connection
It is.
for us, it's like we work with contractors. Well, in a contractor's business, there's a service department, there's a sales department, there's an estimating department. But being able to break that apart and know who to target specifically is key.
It's incredible when it comes to a prospecting side. In sales and in all the group stuff that I teach, right? It's always about protecting your time. It's the one thing you can't get back. So if you go into industrial park and spend an entire day canvassing an industrial park to be able to get nothing, my question to you is like, could you have used that 8 or 10 hours better? Right? Imagine if you wanted to say, okay, I have a goal to be able to work with ABC company, and you can go on LinkedIn and you can see instantly see who the owner is, and not only see their name, you got their image, right? If they have a picture inside there, you got where they worked. You know if they've only been there for 3 months, you've been there for 30 years. Now you can see how deep they are in the company. Did they come up in the ranks? That's one of the coolest things, right? You see someone start out as a general manager and then go into regional manager, then go into director of facilities. Like that guy knows that business, right? Which is a completely different approach. If I see the guy got hired there 2 months ago, I'm going to assume he's got very little knowledge on the business. So utilizing the LinkedIn profile is just a piece, right? You can find the right person, but you can go so much deeper into understanding who you're meeting with. How did you find how did you find out stuff about contacts you were meeting with? Like back in the day, like how'd it work?
Yeah, how did it work? You couldn't just Google them unless they were high profile, right? But you had to make calls to connections to get more information and put your notes in your CRM or your notebook. And then next week when you follow up, you learn a little bit more and you're kind of going back and building your note log even further. Now you can quickly get to that. And I know it's a little bit more, it's different than where it used to come from because now we're forced to have to go to online. We're not forced to, but let's say we go online and now we're capturing information in a completely different view, in a completely different format. It may seem foreign, but it's getting easier and easier to get to it, to understand. Everything's hyperlinked too. So one profile can lead to the next. Send a connection request. They see your name come through. Now you're advancing it further down the prospecting cycle. Now you're knocking on the door, making that call. They've seen your name before. You have a higher likelihood of connecting. It's really cool to see how it's turning into really powerful tools these days. Are you using LinkedIn outside of other ways than building that kind of digital understanding of that organization? Are you using it in other ways?
Okay, so yes, 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 and yes. So, and I remember this specifically. There was a meeting that the SDR team at this a little while back that had set up for me, and I remember them setting the meeting up. I remember seeing the contact. I went to LinkedIn and I viewed the guy's profile. Okay. So literally, I just typed in, Mike Smith, ABC company, LinkedIn. You can do that. It'll literally pull up the profile, or at least everybody named Mike Smith at ABC. And the part that really hit home, right? And this was years ago, but the part that hit home with me is that I saw about 3 or 4 hours before the meeting, he viewed my profile, right? So
Mm.
not only did I know him, I knew where he worked, I knew what his positions were, I knew what his background was, I knew what his face looked like. Like, dude, doesn't it suck going to meet someone new? And I think about this all because it happens to me all the time. I'm sitting inside the front office and you're meeting Mike Smith, right? Whatever his name is, and you got these people walking through the door, and you connect eyes with every single one of them. It's like, Mike. It's like, nope. It's like, all right, I'm an idiot. Right? It's like, Mike. Nope. All right, I'll try again. Um, I mean, how cool is it? You already know their face. You already know what they look like, right? So when he walks in, it's like, Mike, what's up? There's such a massive connection piece that you can add, right? By utilizing LinkedIn, understanding where they worked from. And I'll say a couple of the coolest things that I do is you can also see things they're sharing, right? So it's similar to social media, but it's a professional network. So you can see things about their company. So you talk about like talk topics or something that's there. You can see like, okay, I saw that, what you just opened up a new location in Albuquerque. That's pretty cool. Do you have anything to do with it? Right now you have conversation pieces that you can do. If you think guys have things in common, right? Maybe you both worked at Best Buy when you were kids. There's just so much cool stuff that you can do that breaks down the I don't know you, you don't know me. How are you, Will? My name's Chad. Right? And that to
Yeah.
me, LinkedIn makes the step, right? I know we're talking about connection building. I want to talk about lead generation too, but it's a massive tool on that side of the world.
It makes me think a little bit about the qualities, as you're talking about this, because it's so different versus the being there in person, knocking on that, door for the first time, getting that business card, making that phone call, securing the meeting. Like you're there on the journey, seeing all those faces as you go through it, and eventually make, the meeting contact and shake their hand and sit down with them and have the conversations. But in the digital world, just like you said, you sent a connection request. They actually accepted it, and you just know him via that picture. Taking it from there to going in person and seeing him and connecting the dots, that's a different set of talent than the old school, all the way through from initial contact to a relationship created. So I'm just thinking about the dynamic and how different it is and how different the set of skills needed to thrive in the current era. It's just interesting to see that.
It is. So let me give you a scenario. So if you're okay with it, let's we talked a lot about, finding the profile, meeting seeing the person you're going to meet. All that stuff's great, but you don't have anybody to meet with, right? Whose profile you're looking at.
Mhm.
Um, LinkedIn allows you to be able to change the way you prospect, right? So let's think about you and I going back into that industrial park when we were younger, right? All we saw was buildings. We had 100 buildings. And we had to go through all of the work, much like you said. You walk inside there. What's up? My name's Chad. Seeing if you guys have any roof issues. And then we had to go through all of this things of, no, thank you. We're fine. Not interested. And then it's a waste of time. And I got to go do it again the next day, hoping to talk to somebody. Right. But we don't have to do that because a really, really cool thing about LinkedIn is you don't have to target companies. You can target people, which means if you know what you do great, right? Even if you don't know what you do great, type in facility manager and then go to the search filters and then type in your city, right? I've done this. Type in facility manager. I'm from Chicago, right? So facility manager, just that title, and then do Chicago Metro, and you will come up with 22,000 people that have a title facility manager that have a really, really good chance of handling a facility, right? Which ties them back into roofing, maintenance manager, all the kind of different titles that you guys work with, building engineer. I don't care what the title is. Put it in LinkedIn, put in the search to be able to see where it is. And you're no longer targeting buildings where you have to scratch and crawl and all of this different stuff to be able to find leads. You're now targeting people. right? Like that is cool. That's how you take the next step. It's not I'm just going in and I want a big building. No, no, no. I specialize inside, food manufacturing. And now I'm going to start looking for facility managers specifically inside food manufacturing plants because that's what I do great. That's when it gets
Yeah.
really cool. That's when you can start vertically scaling.
Yeah. And more ways to extract those leads, find more of what you're good at. If you're really good at installing PVC roof systems for restaurants, it's like, all right, find all the GMs for restaurants, profile set. If you have a great track record with schools, connect yourself with superintendents, attend the board meetings or be a part of the groups too. In LinkedIn, there's groups in if you're part of those groups, you can kind of see the dialogue and you can like other things and put yourself in the conversation piece. Now, there is a big difference between the free version of LinkedIn, which lets you look at everything. But if someone clicks on yours, it doesn't tell you the name unless you're doing the paid version. So there is an advantage to having the paid version. But if you really do good in this world, suggest doing the paid version and setting up your profile well, participating. Sometimes I have to remind myself, dude, I got to go on LinkedIn. I got to check my stuff, right? Are you naturally good at just checking it, or do you got to remind yourself?
No, I suck. Yeah, and if you guys have messaged me, it takes me like 3 days. Yeah, like it's there. But you made a really, really good point. So the difference between, and I can make this really simple for you guys, difference between the free and paid version. Number one, LinkedIn is not a site where you can just go search anything. And that's a great, great point. LinkedIn is based upon connections. Okay. So a first person connection is me to Will. Will is my first person connection. Okay, a second connection is Will's friend. Like I'm friends with Will and I can see Will's friends. So now if I add somebody else, I can now see their connection and their friends, right? So it keeps going deeper. First connection, Will. Second connection, Will's friend. Third connection's Will's friend's friend. See how that networking works? So you want to
Mhm.
add people to your network and you want to add people that you actually want to work with. Okay. That's a huge, huge part about this. There's so much that is spent on LinkedIn adding peers, right? Different general managers, different roofing companies. And yes, it can be valuable, but only if they use it right. Because if they're just adding more roofing individuals, now you just have this entire network of roofing individuals. And sorry to tell you, no one's going to buy roofing from a roofer. So you got to make sure you're adding the right people. Now, the paid version allows you to be able to go deeper, much like you said. Like if you look something up and it doesn't allow you to see it, right? Or it says not available, it allows you to be able to see deeper into those connections. The second thing it also allows you to do is create lists. So typically with LinkedIn, if I want to search one person, I can do that all day long. One person, one person, one person. But if I wanted to create a list, let's just say a target list or something to that extent, that's where the paid version also comes in. So there are some benefits, much like you said, there are some real benefits to getting the paid version of it. But as far as what we were talking about in the first part, go in there, type in facility manager in Chicago, and you'll see instantly what does your network open you up to. And every connection that you make gets you deeper into that network, right? Deeper into the people that you can see. So I just wanted to comment on that for a second.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's different like uses. There's obviously different uses for LinkedIn, but all organizations are going to be on there. Most of them are, right? That's how you can get a lay of the land, understand the footprint of that org. A lot of positions are going to be on there, right? As it relates to people that make decisions on behalf of buildings, presidents, owners, CEOs, anyone that manages hospitals, restaurants, anyone that's professionally building their career is going to be on LinkedIn. That doesn't mean that the maintenance manager is going to be on LinkedIn, right? It doesn't mean that the local or site level individuals are going to be on LinkedIn. That doesn't mean it's not a good place to find leads. You could still learn a lot about the business, but just wanted to comment too, because and even on the contractor side, you're not going to see all the different people or employees on LinkedIn with their own profiles set up. It's interesting to see that. And have you seen LinkedIn be used in different capacities and different industries?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I always talk about the four different personas. And what I'll say, and I'll say this as correct as possible. Typically, your older generation may not have a profile, right? They're not technology driven, but you probably know that because they're not the ones that are hip on email, right? They're not the ones that are text messaging. They're the individuals like come by the building, and I'll walk it with you. So yes, there are personas that are active within it, right? My generation, younger generations are going to be a lot more active online. And you might find some of your maintenance managers, right? Maintenance managers typically in the building, hands on, very much running that facility, are not going to be so much engaged because their role is really in the facility, where your property manager, your facility managers are remote typically, and it does force them to be digital. So just like anybody else, right? That's our digital escape, right, on a professional network.
Makes perfect sense. And using it in the different capacities to your advantage. Ultimately, we want to know how to use the tools that we have. You can't just go to Facebook and friend the guy because it might be a little creepy. You
Real.
can go to LinkedIn and add the connection. It's a professional nudge. If they accept, it tells a lot. You get deeper into the relationship. So those are two different universes. Are there other use cases for being able to extract leads out of LinkedIn? If you're a contractor and you had to use it tomorrow to get new leads, where are you starting?
Well, first off, let's define leads, right? So a lead is any targeted individual that you would like to work with, right? So we already talked about how LinkedIn is not targeting a company, it's targeting an individual. So that's the first thing that you guys need to understand is what type of persona, or it doesn't have to be persona, it's a hard word, right? Who do you work with? Just think about it, right? Was he the facility manager? Was he a maintenance manager? Is it a property manager? And that's where you can start, right? So everybody that you find, when you add that connection piece, there's a couple things that happen. I get a notification, right? Pops up on my phone. Will Riley added me as a contact. Awesome, cool. Well, that's an exposure. Okay. So we talk inside marketing, we talk about touches all the time. That is a beautiful thing. I don't care if you add me or not. You saw my name, you saw the company, right? So then when I call you next week, I saw you added me on LinkedIn, right? Like there's starting of a relationship there. So there's so much. When it comes to lead side, yes, there's a lot of automation that you can add into it. AI, and I don't want to say AI, but there's a lot of beautiful things that you can do to where when you create a list, so let's say I create a list of 500 or 600 facility managers in Chicago, just making it up. There are things that you can do, right? So on our side, it's part of the marketing side, is that we can automate so those connections happen automatically. And then when those individuals accept your connection, you automatically send them a message. And it's not a sales message. It's a, hey, Will, thanks for the ad, man. I appreciate it. You can humanize these things so much to where literally it's what I wrote and what I would say if you connected with me. And then that's when it gets really cool because then you're automating the lead development side that you've already picked the persona or you already picked the 650 facility managers that you want to target in Chicago. Now it's automatically adding them. Now it's automatically sending messages to them. And that's when you flip the lead development side upside down. Because I'm not spending hours on LinkedIn now trying to add connections and send messages. I'm now just responding to them, right? And that's a lot of stuff that happens is now I'm just responding to leads. Or if you do something similar with emails, now you're just responding to emails. You're not having to put hundreds of emails out to prospective individuals. A lot of cool stuff that you can automate to it. So yes, you can do a lot with the information that's there, the name, the title, the email that they have available, and even the messages within LinkedIn allows you to be able to automate a lot of that marketing. So there are some really cool stuff that you can do.
Yeah, I love that. There's so much that you can do if you take it further and further, and if you pair that with an actual process that you have in place, which you should think through, right? Initial touch. Well, what do I do next? Okay, they accepted my request. What do I do next? Do I send them a note? Do I start liking their posts? Do I like what happens? There is a messaging element to it, but for me, it feels like it's clogged up with a lot of salesy stuff. So I'm a little right. I think that should be humanized. Like you said, you're catering to humanized words when you're messaging. I think that's really important. But then where from there? I want to take you to coffee. Okay, great. So that's an example of a flow. I think part of that too, if you're going to venture into the LinkedIn world, to make sure that your profile's set up, make sure that your company's profile is set up, and it doesn't look like it was just slapped together. Because if you're going to start making connections and people are going to start accepting your connections in hopes to advance the relationship, they're probably going to look at your organization. And when they first go there, what's the first impression? So I think there's some things to do before you plug into this world. I just think it's really cool to see how many contractors are on LinkedIn today versus how many were on LinkedIn 5 years ago. And we used to have to go knock on buildings to get a contact and then follow up with that contact to get a meeting. And once we got a meeting, that was a success. Those days, I don't want to say they're over, but this is the new way of doing things. It's just evolution.
Yeah. Yeah, it's happening faster. And you made a good point, right? Because I started like on step three. You have to have a good profile, right? And nobody wants to add somebody that doesn't have a picture, right? It
Mm.
just fake. It just seems fake. So you spend some time, put some information in there, right? You're gonna get what you put in. So yeah, if you don't do it right and put in lazy information and just have one sentence about yourself, you're gonna get, I don't want to say stereotyped, right? But you're going to get to that point where it's just like, yeah, no, thank you. Where you want it to be professional. You want someone to go there. You want them to know about you because, again, that's the start of a relationship, right? And on a professional side, it's the start of a relationship that allows your customer to be able to understand, what value and what offer you have, and the same from their side. So it's a great, great point.
Yeah.
The other thing that I'll add, you mentioned the process and the flow, right? So you and I believe inside workflows, massive part to consistency. I also have what I call a 21-day touch sheet. So it's 3 weeks of how you communicate to customers using multiple channels. So day one is a phone call and a voicemail, right? Day two is this, day five is this, day seven is this, right? And LinkedIn's brought into that, emails brought into it, phone calls brought into it, because you have to use those different channels. LinkedIn is just one of those digital channels that has more information than most, right? You make a phone call, you're not going to find out where he went to school, what year he graduated, and where he worked. LinkedIn will. So I have that on my website. So if you just go to my website, servicealignment.com, and then you go to resources now, you can download that 21-day touch sheet. It's absolutely free. And if that ties in and that helps you guys get further along with using LinkedIn to cultivate leads, then that's awesome.
That's awesome, man. And I love what you're doing too, because you're simplifying what may appear to be complex, right? So if I'm an average roofer and this is all I've ever done, paper and clipboard and I handshake agreements, this might be intimidating. But what you've done is you've made that content digestible and easy to navigate. So as we venture over the next couple of years and the technology is advancing and the access to information is advancing, it's going to move at a quick pace. So my advice is to, if you're not already out there thinking through your strategies, using LinkedIn, building your digital footprint, got to start taking some of these steps, and obviously everybody that's watching this is probably taking some of those steps. Maybe that could be true, but I love the content, man. You did a good job putting that site together and having things be free and available, all in the name of elevating the industry.
That's right. There's so much, right? And the biggest thing that I think I learned that really changed my perspective is that you can have all the information in the world. If you don't know how to use it, it's worth nothing. Right. So giving you guys between this, showing you guys how to use LinkedIn and then saying, okay, day one, you've never met with somebody. I'm going to advise you not to add them on LinkedIn yet. Make a phone call. Because if they pick the phone up, you can accomplish so much more in making that phone call. But if they don't pick the phone up, here is what you do on day two, day five, day seven, right? To be able to grow it. And it's all based upon what I've done in my career. So like you said, this is a small piece of it. I love that you invite me here for Fine Line Fridays and get this done. And like, it's a huge, huge part that I get to give back. So thank you.
I have fun doing it. I love it. I love it. So let's wrap up and conclude. Look forward to seeing you back in 2 weeks, man.
Yes, sir. All right. Have fun, guys. See ya.
See y'all.